The anime opens with the protagonist Yuki Wakura, a student who demonstrates his high level of domestic skills by cleaning the entire classroom. At that moment, he watches through the window as girls are arriving at school. Yuki talks about how men cannot receive blessings from peaches, so from the moment they are born, their lives are in hardship. His classmates are surprised at how good Yuki is at sewing and among other household chores. Ailey is thankful that her older sister taught it to her. She later attends a business orientation and while walking down the street wonders if she is going to work and live a normal life. Suddenly, a thick fog covers the entire surrounding area, and before he knows it, he is transported to another place entirely. He quickly realizes that he is in the demonic capital, Matto, and as soon as he understands that, he pulls out the manual he was given for this kind of situation. The manual begins to tell the details she should know, such as that Matto is an alternate dimension connected through portals that suddenly appear in various places in Japan. Damage caused by shukis in this world, or in the world of civilians wandering around Matto, are called Matto mishaps. Ailey explains that if you happen to get lost in Matto, you should not go anywhere and wait for the anti-demon defense force. Even though Yuki follows these instructions, he gets attacked by one of the shukis, the demons that wander through Matto. With no other options, he has to run away, but he finds himself trapped in a dead end, surrounded by dozens of these creatures. Before they can finish him off, a woman shows up to protect him, riding on another demon. She assures Yuki that he doesn't need to worry anymore and begins to take out the approaching Yukis with her sword. At the second he realizes that the demon he had tamed is defeated, complaining that he is useless. When he finishes with the nearby enemies, he introduces himself as Kyuka Usen, commander of the 7th Squadron of the anti-demon force. Yoka tames another demon and ends up fleeing the area along with him. While being chased, other members of her squadron make contact with her, who are named Himari Azuma, Nei Okawamura, and Shusiu Tsuruga. Nei reports to her that they have found no other victims in the area, using her power to tell them the number and location of the approaching Yukis. Kyoka orders her to take care of them, while she protects him so they all end up using their special abilities to eliminate the enemies. Among the women who got their powers from peaches, which can only be harvested in Matto, there are combat specialists from the anti-demon defense force. Yuki is surprised to see them, having only heard rumors, and it's his first encounter with them. Soon after, the girls rescue an unconscious boy, who upon waking, asks about his sister. As they continue, Yuki asks Kyoka where she's taking him. She explains that in Matto, a victim must perform 3 actions: stay silent and wait for rescue. 2. If he meets a shuki, he should focus on his safety and escape quickly. 3. Avoid wasting time talking. Suddenly, he notices a girl surrounded by shukis. Quickly, she leaps into action, confronting the nearby monsters. But with so many of them, some are about to attack the girl, and Yuki does not hesitate to shield her with his body. Luckily, that is not necessary, as Kyoka arrives in time to eliminate them with his sword skill, creating a protective barrier right after. The problem is that the barrier is temporary and is slowly cracked by the shuki's blows. Kyoka thinks that if she were alone, she could handle it, and that she was unlucky with the peach blessing, showing a flashback of her past where the girls, where she trained, talked about how her power is useless, and that her dream of becoming the Supreme Commander is destined to remain a dream forever. Even with those words, Kyoka stays true to her oath to become the Supreme Commander, capable of managing all the other commanders. Reflecting on the situation, he mentions that he has never actually used his power with a name, believing it would be futile. However, given the current circumstances, he tells Yuki he requires her assistance to escape. He immediately agrees to do whatever is necessary to aid them, and she then tells him that she will make him her slave. Hearing that, Yuki feels a bit confused, as it seems he'll have to fight those things. But Kyoka reminds him of his promise to do anything. After getting on top of him, Yuki, unable to process the situation well, touches a girl for the first time and has no choice but to lick her finger. This activates Kyoka's power, forming a contract with Yuki while binding him with her chains, starting the transformation to complete the conversion. Kyoka turns the monster into a large beast. The technique is called eternal slave chains. Making use of this new form, Yuki unleashes the enormous power he possesses, eliminating a Yuki by cutting him in half with only his hand. Kyoka is astonished because she didn't expect him to be so strong. After that, she takes the girl and climbs on top of Yuki, handling him with the chains to start eliminating the nearby enemies. At that moment, the Yukis merge into one, forming a giant Savoie beast. She commands Yuki to charge at the massive Shuki, and as she launches herself, she swiftly dodges its attacks. Then, she crashes into the monster's face like a meteor, instantly destroying it with her strike. After dealing with the monsters, Kyoka instructs the girls to proceed as they need to speak with him. Already back to normal, she lets him know that he can continue to work as her slave, but first she has to explain her use and ability to him. There, she surprises him by giving him a kiss on the lips, and as they part, she comments that this is the price of her ability. As mistress, she is obliged to reward her slaves every time they complete a task. Although this she didn't know what would happen either. For when she took Shukis as her slaves, she only had to give them some pork. In other words, his body moves regardless of his will, all until the price of his ability is turned off. There he kisses Yuki again, though this time it ends in a rather intense tongue kiss. When he finally finishes the reward, Yuki's still a bit stunned. He didn't think his first kiss would happen on Mato. Kyoka tells him that these Yukis, if any of them were able to enter their world, there would be a dozen casualties. Her goal is to become the supreme commander of the anti-demon defense force and exterminate the Yukis as quickly as possible, this because the current commander is too negligent and can use her ability to the fullest with him, so maybe she can reach that position. Yuki tells him that he doesn't excel in anything special and that he only knows how to do housework, hearing that she praises him for that. Plus, he took a risk to protect that girl, which, for a man, that's something worthy. After hearing that, Yuki then states that he wishes to become a hero here, and with that, the two have a deal. Yuki thinks that even if he gets a normal deal, only boring and ordinary days await him. But here at least he can avenge his older sister, and if he can get rewards from Kyoka, it will be worth the effort. Later, she takes him to the dormitory of the Anti-Demon Defense Force, in this case, the 7th Squad, which is equipped with a powerful barrier. As he goes inside, Yuki is confident that he can also become a member of the squad. As he enters, Kyoka introduces him to the other girls, letting him know that Yuki will work here as a janitor, and there he clarifies that during a battle, he will be their slave, other than that he will be the dormitory janitor. Fortunately, he is good at housework, so he fits in perfectly, and finally, he tells him that a man can't become a member of the Anti-Demon Defense Force, which is a hard blow for Yuki. Despite Kyoka asking the girls to treat him nicely, seconds later, they start treating him like a janitor who they have to throw chores at. Continuing in his job as a janitor, Yuki is suddenly startled when a Shuki attacks the barrier while he is nearby. In the unfortunate area of Uraquimon, southwest of Mato, which is why more Shukis appear here than in the other dormitories, Mato is an alternate dimension that is as big as the city of Tokyo. It is divided into 8 different directions, and each has its own anti-demon defense force stationed there. Yuki thanks him for that information, as he still doesn't know much about Mato, to which Nei replies that she is his senpai, so it's her job to teach him, though Yuki doesn't think he can get used to a girl having more seniority than him. It's at that moment that Yuki is instantly taken out by a gunshot, which turns out to be the work of Himari. Himari is known for being quite aggressive towards Yuki. Shortly after this event, they are all impressed with the amazing food that Yuki prepares. Kyoka then takes the chance to speak with them about his stay, discussing how they should adapt to the circumstances they find themselves in. He assures them that if Yuki makes a mistake, he will definitely correct it. As night falls, it becomes Yuki's task to clean one of the dormitory towers. However, with the view he has, he ends up gazing at Himari. She gets naked while taking a bath. In a hurry, he hides so that she doesn't see him, only to realize that Tsuruga is watching him right in front of him, although being super small. After that, he grows to his normal size, explaining to Yuki that his ability allows him to grow and shrink. There, she surprises him by taking a picture of him with the bathroom in the background, saying that she was watching him as she wanted to know what motivates a man with that incriminating picture, Yuki tries to explain the misunderstanding to him, though she tells him that if he doesn't want her to leak that photo, he will have to be her slave, which he can no longer do as he is already one. When he is cleaning his room, he fails to get the phone away from her. She tells him that she doesn't see him as a boy and that she actually trusts him to act as the janitor, as she doesn't think he has that kind of bad intentions, so she only does those things to create interesting things and to annoy him more. Later, Yuki meets Kyuka and Himari for hand-to-hand training. Kyoka tells her to move faster. The impact won't kill Ashuki, but it can unbalance it easily. Then, Ashuki appears from the barrier, and Kyoka shows overwhelming power with brute force, shocking Yuki. On the other hand, Nei approaches him to give him some important news, as it turns out that Kyoka, Himari and her will soon be leaving the dorm to attend a meeting, asking him to keep an eye on things along with his Ruga while they are gone. And as he is listening to that, Tsuruga gives Yuki a greeting with a not very nice smile. Later, she finds herself giving him a shoulder massage. Tsuruga tells her that she is the youngest of 3 sisters in her family, grew up without a father, and went to an all-girls school her entire life, so she has never had a conversation with a boy before. He also mentions how what he was seeking was excitement and fun, which is why he decided to relocate to Mato. Once they finish that, they begin making bets with a video game where the loser has to remove an article of clothing. Yuki brags about being skilled at this game, but after playing for a while, he finds himself in only his underwear, suffering yet another loss. He refuses to remove that last garment, and seeing that she insists, he warns her that she could get hurt and that she should be careful, but she just laughs and ends up using her ability to be bigger and have control over the situation, forcing him to undress. Seeing what he has, she simply laughs at him being so small and adorable, causing Yuki to scream out of embarrassment, 2000. However, they are suddenly interrupted by a tremor, caused by a giant Shuki attacking the barrier. Tsuruga makes the decision to take action, using her dimp shift ability to transform into a giant, executing a combo attack. She successfully handles that beast with ease, and right after, she shrinks a bit. But when she lowers her guard, she is unexpectedly attacked from behind. This happens because another huge 2000 Shuki had been hidden, emerging from the ground. She attempts to use her power again, but nothing happens. As she tries to escape, other Yukis slow her down by immobilizing her feet, causing her to get hurt by the giant's attacks. Yuki starts searching for a way to activate her ability, heading to where Kyoka's clothes are, thinking she might succeed if she uses them. By kissing her glove, she gets a reaction, but after a few tries, she ends up with her boot, which she kisses to be able to transform. When he does, he only transforms halfway through, which is the first time it's ever happened in that form. He advances straight at the giant Chucky, and as she holds him still, he takes him out with a powerful attack. But having launched himself into the air, he begins to fall after returning to normal, heading for a big fall, being ultimately saved by landing between her breasts. With both of them having returned to their normal forms, Yuki demonstrates what he is capable of. She is stunned by what she sees down there. Yuki quickly covers herself, attempting to explain that her strong reaction was due to the transformation, and not for any other reason. Meanwhile, Tsuruga thinks to himself that it's quite impressive. When Kyoka arrives, she rewards him with a rather rough massage. When he talks privately with his Ruga, she expresses that her curiosity about the boys increased more than before, showing her the perfect picture of the two of them when they were unclothed 2000, and when she is alone. Being somewhat blushing, she declares that she will not leave him alone, and in a scene change, we see other girls from the anti-demon defense forces who are defeated by some not at all ordinary Yukis. One of them is shown with the silhouette of a woman who mentions that Yuki is somewhere in Mato, having intentions of paying her a visit. On a new day, Yuki returns to the Earth dimension with Kyoka, as she wants to take him somewhere, but doesn't say where. Tsuruga asks Nei about him, and when he learns Yuki went out with Kyoka, he realizes it's May 11th and knows their destination. They arrive at a memorial, where Kyoka explains there was an incident at Mat Gazan in Oizawa, where dozens of Shukis roamed the world. One was particularly powerful. He remembers it vividly. There was a single horn that stood out, which is why he calls it the unicorn. All the Yukis crossing that day were eliminated by the anti-demon defense force that came to assist, or so she believed. But upon reviewing the records, she found out that only one unicorn escaped through the gateway to Mato. That's why she has a score to settle with that Yuki and wants him ready for when that day comes. That's the reason why, which led him to speak. Then they return to Mato, but Yuki persuades her to stop by a cafe famous for its spar fight. Inside, he notices she enjoys sweets, yet she remains intent on reaching Mato. Yuki shares that she lost her older sister in a Mato accident too, understanding his feelings. He warns him that seeking revenge will fail if he self-destructs first, advising her to rest, which she did with him. Shortly after entering the portal, Kyoka discovers that persuasion is another of his strengths and agrees to try the parfait. After tasting it, she is thrilled by its deliciousness. Yuki watches her, captivated by her beautiful expression, and realizes that seeing Kyoka smile for the first time brings back memories of her sister. It reminds her of the past, when she used to pamper and support him for his good qualities, who was cooking at the time. At that moment, Kyoka receives an emergency call from Mato, which sounds like a conch shell. A single conch stroke means that it is not life-threatening, but something serious is happening anyway, and to get there faster, she has it transformed on the spot, rushing to the portal. Upon returning to the dormitories, Kyoka praises him for getting there so quickly and warns him that she is going to change and that he should accompany her. The reward she gets is to take off his stockings, she looking embarrassed as she calls him a pervert for such weird desires. Returning to the girls, they inform them that a crater-like formation appeared about 21 kilometers to the south, along with a large number of shukis. This is something they had never seen before, and with that in mind, she gives him the order to initiate the operation for this matter. Once they arrive at the location, the girls decide to follow the strategy that was suggested by Kyoka, while she stays back with Yuki. There, Kyoka explains to Yuki that merging will make it easier to handle the situation than trying to defeat them individually. The Yukis are really strong, but their fighting style is quite basic, so losing with this strategy is out of the question. Suddenly, Tsuruga is caught off guard by an unexpected energy beam, and the damage is overwhelming for her, despite managing to block it. Upon seeing who launched that attack, they realize it's a Shuki with an extremely long horn, which Kyoka immediately identifies as the unicorn. This monster leaps closer to them, and they notice that this Shuki is entirely different from the others, plus it can speak. After a few seconds of charging, the demon fires another energy beam straight at Himari. She manages to block part of the attack with a shield she creates using her ability, but the power is so overwhelming that she ultimately ends up being defeated. With that, Ai who asks her identity, to which this mysterious woman replies that she could be considered the arch-enemy of the anti-demon defense force. There, she begins eating a Mato peach and inquires if he hasn't seen her little brother around. Right after this, they commence fighting each other, where both the unicorn and the demoness display their superior strength. Within a few minutes, they are interrupted by one of those giant Yukis, but this interruption causes the woman to become suddenly and intensely furious. Upon witnessing that sudden outburst of anger, Yuki glimpses a reflection of her sister within her. Following this, she uses her hair extensions to destroy that Shuki, leaving both Kyoka and Yuki somewhat amazed at how effortlessly she accomplished it. After further struggle, she executes an unforeseen maneuver that separates Kyoka from him, whom she eventually captures. As she draws near him, she realizes he is not a Shuki. However, before she can approach any closer, Kyoka interrupts her for lowering her guard. Because of this, they flee. But Kyoka, filled with anger, doesn't want the unicorn to escape and urges Yuki to follow. He disobeys her, prioritizing the protection of the girls since the Yukis keep approaching. Realizing this, Kyoka comes to her senses, understanding that her anger nearly endangered her companions' lives. After returning to the dorms, the girls are well taken care of, while she takes it upon herself to give Yuki the reward. Now she tries to step on his crotch, and, while doing that, she comments that it's unbelievable that there's a Yuki who can speak their language. This news is going to shock the entire country. Yuki reminds her about her sister, who was lost in a Mato accident. She thinks that thing resembled her sister a bit, having a feeling that it might actually be her sister. And also, she had an unusual reaction when she looked at his face. Kyoka recalls that woman mentioning she was searching for her little brother, so it's likely that word brought back his memories of his sister. In any case, no ordinary human could possess such strength, and besides, no one had ever heard of a human transforming into Chucky. Finally, she remarks on how peculiar it is that he appears quite happy when they step on him, to which he responds that the view is quite nice from down there, having a perfect angle to see up her skirt. This backfires on him, as Kyoka doesn't hesitate to beat him up for it. Later, he thinks about the matter, since Kyoka is convinced that it was a new species of Shuki, but if it is really his sister, he wonders how he has been able to survive until now, and among other things, seeing that he is so distracted and deep in his thoughts, Nei gives him a blow and offers to help him cook, and for treating him also, Yuki thanks him. She is very grateful for this, as her help does make a difference. In a scene change, we are again with his sister, named Aoba, the others dealing with Coconut and Naoyuno. Aoba is convinced that without hesitation was her brother Yuki, but doesn't understand how he ended up looking so much like a Shuki, coming to assume it's the ability of that tamer. Returning to him, he now has a series of unfortunate encounters with Tsuruga and Himari, the latter not hesitating to attack him with a chainsaw. Just as something is about to happen to her, a portal opens beside them, revealing members of the 6th Squadron, Commander Tenka Izuma and second-in-command Yachiha Azuma. Tenka approaches Yuki, recognizing him as the slave they discussed, and requests her to call Kyoka. Once they are together, Tenka informs him she wants to discuss the appearance of the evil Yuki humanoids, a topic she heard about from the Supreme Commander. Generally speaking, their squads tend to operate independently. However, from now on, the anti-demon defense force will become more cohesive. Yachijo hears that Himari fainted during an attack by one of the humanoid Shukis. She mocks her, telling her sister that she seems determined to disgrace the Azuma family's reputation, urging her to quit and return home. Tenka adds that these Shukis aren't exactly weak, as apparently the 3rd Squadron had an encounter with them and went twice, and so Kyoka can understand why it's important to cooperate with other squadrons. She also mentions that they need to evaluate the current capabilities of each of their teams, going so far as to propose to Tenka to have a Mato exhibition match. Seeing that Yuki doesn't understand, Nei explains to her that this is what they call a competition of strength and skill between 2 squads. Kyoka asks them if it's okay if they do it by single combat, and Tenka accepts her proposal, saying goodbye to them by going through a portal and thus disappearing. After that, Himari asks Kyoka to help her prepare for the fight, accepting any difficulty as long as she wins, to which Kyoka gladly accepts, and with that present, she tells Yuki that she is going to claim him as her slave from now on, which he doesn't understand at all. After eating, Kyoka encourages Himari to train hard so that she can give her sister a beating. Later, Yuki and Himari go outside Mato. On the way, she tells him that transforming parts of her body into weapons is not her main ability. She only uses it because it is compatible, showing him what her real ability is by having him look at her phone, where she has a card from Kyoka. Her skill is known as learning. It allows her to acquire and utilize the skills of others for herself. She chooses a person's skill on her phone, then implements it, meaning she can currently use Kyoka's skill. Yuki inquires if she comprehends what Kyoka's ability entails, and she responds that based on what she's been told, it is quite physically demanding. Upon reaching an area filled with Shukis, 2000 performs the ability, causing him to undergo a transformation. When he finishes, he observes that the form he has now is different compared to when he does it with Kyoka. During the fight, he realizes that he can move at a tremendous speed, even faster than with Kyoka, but the downside is that he lacks the same strength. Keeping that in mind, he decides to strike them at high speed to inflict as much damage as possible. Once he completes his training, Yuki asks him why he chose this particular skill over all the others, and Himari responds that it provided him the chance to be useful despite she is absolutely determined to become a man, even though she stays silent when she realizes he is showing her his panties. Yuki explains to him that this is the cost of her skill and even demonstrates that she won't change until he claims the reward. Grasping this, she swiftly sits on his face, inquiring if this is a sufficient reward. Following that, they head back. And along the way, he insists even more that it would be better if she used a different ability, 2000, but she clearly tells him that she would do it if possible. But she can't because there's a compatibility aspect in learning that reduces the quality of most skills, making them useless. For instance, if he used Tsuruga's Dimchif, it would only increase his bust size by around 3 centimeters. She is also unconcerned about the payment for Kyoka's skill, as she is determined to win. She even tells him that she was born into the Azuma family, a significant family with notable achievements in Mato. Her older sisters are successful, so everyone had high expectations for her as well. But she would always overexert herself before a big event, ending up hurt or nervous, and then she would get a fever. Because of this, she never had results to show, and it was the same with her peach skill. As a result, she was always picked on at home by her sister when she couldn't keep up. So now, this is her first opportunity since she cut ties with the family to prove them wrong about her peach ability. As for her ultimate goal, she wishes to be a hero like the commander, feeling that she will become a new version of herself if she can defeat Yachijo. After hearing that, Yuki realizes that she resembles him. Himari also mentions that they need something for the exhibition match, and that is a finishing move that will demolish the enemy. Yuki has her own reasons for wanting to be stronger, and maybe she is the key to open a new door, and it would also be even better if she manages to assisting Kyoka. Because of that, he decides to help her. When he inquires about Yachijo's ability, she explains it's golden hour, enabling him to manipulate time, such as freezing and rewinding it. Upon hearing this, Yuki quickly remarks they're in trouble. Himari notes that while Yachijo's ability is indeed dangerous, it demands energy, and she will become exhausted if overused. That's how they'll succeed. She strikes a strange pose to activate his ability, claiming it's a routine that boosts his skills. They should use his speed, an ultra-fast move that won't let him freeze time. Yuki suggests a quick step forward, a direct punch, which they'll refine into a deadly blow he can't dodge. Himari instructs him to try to channel all his strength into a single part of his body. Upon doing so, he quickly directs all of that to his legs, thus empowering them, noticing that he is now much faster than before, but upon taking a hit he sees that it does nothing to Yuki, and upon returning to normal he feels exhausted. She explains to him that this is because he lost most of the strength in his arms by concentrating all the energy in his legs. Shortly after, Kyoka comes to check on her, asking Himari why she watches from afar, and reminding her not to forget the core of her ability. Himari gets the message and climbs onto transformed Yuki, takes his chains, and commands him directly as his master. Now, his actions seem more natural and strong. When executing an attack, the power is significantly amplified by that. However, once they complete their training, Yuki finds herself feeling much more exhausted than she did earlier. It's at this point that she offers him a reward, now gently touching him to reveal her breasts, presenting that breathtaking view. This inspires Yuki to persist with her training, progressing steadily in this manner day after day. Eventually, the day of the fight comes, where Himari takes a moment to unwind in the bath alongside Tsuruga. In that bathroom is also Sahara Wakasa of Tenka's squad, this because those of her team are already in the dormitory. Later, they arrive at the place where the fight will take place, where Kyoka asks Yuki to write her name on a wooden board, 2009. That is used to activate Guina's ability, Wiesen. She can create a barrier by drawing a line on the ground that acts as a boundary. Only those who sign their names can pass the barrier. Plus, any injuries during the fight inside will be healed. Gina introduces herself as a member of the 10th Squadron and will referee this match. First up, in round 1, it's Himari Azuma from the 7th Squadron versus Yachijo Azuma from the 6th Squadron. The rules are simple. The first to surrender or get knocked out loses, and wounds will be healed, so give it your all. Before starting, Yuki performs the transformation to be ready, and they just announce the start of the fight. Chiho already shows her confidence by speaking calmly to her, but without being able to react, she is suddenly hit by a powerful direct hit from Yuki, which sends her flying. Despite that, in the air she uses Golden Hour, rewinding the 5S time, returning to the moment when the fight just started. At that instant, Himari notices that Yachijo is tired and following her strategy. What she does now is to jump in the air. Yachijo remains brimming with confidence, as Himari does not know how strong she has become and will prove it with prime time. While in the air, Himari sees Yachijo pull out a modified pistol to use on Mato, though she already knew that would be her primary weapon. On the other hand, Yachijo believes that jumping into the air was a reckless decision, because as soon as she begins to descend, she will activate her ability. Himari observes Yachijo getting ready, and due to this observation, he instructs Yuki to focus his strength in his legs. This results in an incredible burst of speed, causing Yuki to disappear from Yachijo's view, allowing him to land another powerful direct hit. However, it still isn't enough to knock her out. Yachijo then strikes her pose and once more utilizes Golden Hour, rewinding time. 5 seconds. Now, going back to the moment before she was attacked, she realizes that if she activates her ability earlier, they will move into her attack range when time freezes. That's exactly what she does now, freezing time for 5 seconds. However, when she does this, she notices that they are not near her but rather outside of her range. She understands that they changed their tactics intentionally. As time resumes, Himari, observing her sister's expressions, already knows that her ability was wasted. Following that, he takes advantage of Yuki's incredible speed to swiftly move from one spot to another, skillfully dodging Yachijo's shots, while she barely manages to evade his attacks. At this point, Himari begins to mentally note a few details. Golden Ore cannot be activated immediately. The trigger is that peculiar stance she adopts. Therefore, depending on their positions when she begins to move, it signals whether to attack or retreat. They can tell if she used her ability by Yashiha's behavior. If she's suddenly tired, it's proof she rewound time, then they change things and escape. It's an energy drain, so she can only use it a few more times. This is what Yachijo thinks her sister Himari believes, saying it's time to use her trump card. At that moment he uses prime time, freezing time for 10S, and taking advantage of the opportunity he approaches towards them. If they were only 5S, they would be out of his attack range, but with 10S advantage, he can't escape. Being close, he fires a good amount of bullets towards them, and when time freezes, they immediately receive damage without being able to dodge it. Once they are on the ground with serious wounds, Yachijo tells them about his primetime ability by adopting a definitive stance: doubles the amount of time he can control. The downside was that it took a few seconds longer than Golden Ore to activate, but at that distance he knew he would dodge her attack if he made a show of getting into his majestic pose. 2009 also comments in his thoughts that when learning adapts, a new ability that carries a cost, he cannot execute an ability change until the price is paid, and so he cannot change abilities. Halfway through the fight, with her sister's hurtful words and the wounds suffered, Himari already wonders if all her efforts were in vain, but Yuki asks her not to give up, and that skill exhausted Yachiha, since she is exhausted and probably won't be able to use it again. Yusin Himari stands up thanks to her words, seeing that she is right, and with the two determined to continue, they get back into position. There, she asks Yuki to do what they have practiced, throwing herself head-on towards Yachiho. Yachiho reacts by using Golden Hour, but moments later she is blinded by an intense light that shines on Yuki. Having already done her pose, Yachijo stops time for 5 seconds to quickly aim to the front, but when she recovers her vision she only sees Yuki in her human form, without Himari in sight, shooting blindly in case she is on her back. As soon as the weather begins to thaw, she is struck by a gunshot wound to her neck. This is Himari's doing, as he has slid across the floor to launch an attack from below. Yachijo falls to the ground from this attack, and Yuki does as well. However, just as a winner seems about to be declared, Himari stands up, raising his fist triumphantly. Having secured victory in the first-round match, their injuries are healed by Hina's 2009. At that moment, we are with Yachijo, who goes back to the memories of the past, still not forgetting when his brother caught a cold just before the entrance exams because he forced himself too much. He saw an overachiever and thought Himari was too naive, but she really proved her worth to him just now. Because of that, he asks Himari to wait, admitting that he has become stronger and will make sure to treat her better, giving her the offer to return to the family. But Himari refuses that without hesitation, as he now belongs to the 7th Squadron, making Yachijo petrified at this resounding no. When they return to the dormitories to drink water, Yuki is suddenly surprised by a juicy kiss from her. While that happens, Tenka advises Yachijo about her mistakes made in the combat because she underestimated her enemy. She also comments that possibly that slave was holding back, and that if she didn't, she could have been killed instantly if she received an attack of. Sahara, who is quite self-absorbed, begins to see Yuki's value and seems a bit captivated by him. When Himari kisses him passionately as a big reward, she apologizes for being harsh. Tsuruga secretly observes this intense moment, understanding the physical demands he mentioned about using Yuki as a slave. Now, Tsuruga and Sahara are about to fight, unaware that they are being watched from a distance by new foes. of an unknown identity. Before beginning, Tsuruga suggests to Sahara that they save their skills for later and instead fight barehanded, to which she agrees. As the fight begins, Tsuruga showcases his wrestling skills to deliver effective attacks, although Sahara keeps up quite well. After several minutes, she becomes fatigued and declares her intention to use her powers. Quickly, Tsuruga uses Paradigm Shift to become a giant Zweitausendine, throwing a powerful punch towards her opponent. Sahara activates her Crazy Sheep ability for 3 min, which envelops her in an aura of energy that allows her to dodge his attack. Hina explains more about her Crazy Sheep ability, which allows her to increase her strength for the precise time she specifies beforehand: 1 min minimum, 60 min maximum, and the shorter the allotted time, the stronger she becomes. She will return in 2001. However, her ability requires a mandatory recovery period of 3 minutes. Tsuruga tries to kick her, but she surpasses him in speed, countering with a strong blow to his leg. While overpowering her, Sahara tells her that her large size makes her easy to dodge, finishing with a direct attack to the stomach that knocks her to the ground. At that moment, Tsuruga turns to see the face Yuki makes, not wanting him to see her like that. There he remembers a conversation he had with his classmates when they were going to class, where they were talking to him about the cute idea of having a partner. Tsuruga showed no interest with that, her wish being to join the anti-demon defense force to get some fun. Her friends understood that, but also let her know that the day would come when she would understand what they were talking about. Returning to the present day, Tsuruga is adamant about not giving up and performs a strategy change. When she stands up, she uses Paradigm Shift again to increase her size much more, and right after she throws herself on Sahara without giving her a chance to dodge, she ends up crushing her with her great weight, being able to see that Sahara can barely lift her to avoid that. But this is taken advantage of by her Ruga to end up grabbing her with her hand and thus crashing her to the ground with overwhelming force. This causes her to become unconscious, but before the countdown to her defeat ends, she sees out of nowhere that Sahara stands up. Yachijo laughs upon seeing that, explaining that this is part of Sahara's ability. If she loses consciousness while her ability is active, her heightened killer instincts take over her body, which then continues the fight on its own. She will attack enemies and allies alike, but that alone makes her that much more powerful, and she can also sleep in any eye at any time and in any place. Meanwhile, Sahara by that time uses the full power of her ability to quickly reach towards Tsuruga, grabbing her by her clothes to slam her to the ground with a bestial force, which is enough to knock her out. This grants Sahara the victory, and within minutes, Gina heals both of their wounds. Tsuruga is comforted by Kyuka, but still down, she decides to go to the base, and Yuki realizes that she is not well. Later, he visits her in her room, where he tells her that he enjoyed her fight and would have loved to see more of her wrestling moves. His words are enough to cheer her up a bit, and what she does is ask him to close her eyes. After doing so, he opens the door to surprise her with a kiss on the lips. Yuki opens her eyes within minutes, realizing what she is doing, and that on top of that, she has her chest exposed, having been damaged by Sahara Zweitausendine. Not understanding anything, Tsuruga makes an excuse that she wanted to get rid of the shock of the fight with an even bigger shock. But in her head she thinks that she should make him love her even more to really tell him the truth. On the other hand, Kyoka asks Nei to do a reconnaissance of the area without noticing anything strange. At the second she notices some people in the distance. One of them feels her gaze and inflicts quite a lot of fear to Nei. Right there, a whole army of Shukis emerges from the ground to the surroundings and heads straight for them. Hina feels confident because of her powerful barrier. But among the enemies appears one of a much higher level, which ends up destroying the barrier with a single attack. Kyoka reacts by canceling the fight and making them all stand on guard, while Tenka uses her ability to lead the non-combatants like Nei and Hina away. Tsuruga and Yuki also arrive to the battle, as does Sahara. Himari sees that the bullets have no effect on this demon leader, being saved by her sister Yachijo. She signals Himari to eventually retreat, while she takes it upon herself to entertain this being. After leaving, this demon tells Yachijo that he came because he knew the lightning would come early, implying that one of his attacks hit Himari, but Yachijo used his time travel to save her, and this makes her furious. Himari reaches Kyoka to ask him to ride Yuki along with her, to which he eventually agrees. In doing so, she creates a new transformation in Yuki called Eternal Chain's War Cloud Slave. There she feels the power flowing through her body and remembers the ability her sister used, concentrating the energy in her mouth to fire it in a beam of energy that disintegrates all the Shukis ahead. As the fighting progresses on all sides, Tenka also decides to return with them so he can join in. Yachijo has difficulties with the humanoid because one of its attacks reaches her and destroys an arm, but there, she lets him know that she can do her poses even if she loses some limbs, placing herself in a position of legs to activate Golden Hour, and what she does is to go back in time 5s, thus managing to save her arm, although by that point the fatigue overcomes her and she becomes an easy target for him. Before she is eliminated, Tenka suddenly appears behind her, which takes him by surprise since he couldn't even see her why. There she tells Yachijo to take it easy, causing him to retreat to be alone with the humanoid. The humanoid asks him how he can tell him to take it easy when his entire army is behind them, and Tenka calmly asks him which army he is referring to as the surrounding dust gradually disappears. This special Shuki realizes that all his people were eliminated by blue flames. Tenka informs him he has already neutralized any Shuki that could interfere, and the report mentioned 2 other officer-level humanoids exist. But first, Tenka plans to deal with him. Upon hearing this, he sees an opportunity to enjoy the situation. As the battle continues, the Shuki humanoid named Raiden arrives to complain that they have only assisted 2 of the targets they are searching for. Tenka, upon analyzing it a little, understands that only she and Kyoka are in the area, besides the other girls, so she assumes that they want to attack the squadron commanders. Raiden is confident with his great power, firing a high-powered beam at her, but Tenka dodges it using her teleportation power, evading even the second longer attack. She can manipulate space with her power, Amino Mitori. She uses a special attack, trapping Raiden in a black hole that absorbs him. Yuki is amazed Tenka defeated Shukis alone, so he sees Kyo's goal of leading everyone as ambitious. Despite that, Kyoka shows her determination to make it to the top, inspiring Yuki to support her and become a hero in Mato. Later they all gather together talking about what happened. Despite having exterminated the Yukis, Nei's report indicates that there were other enemy generals present, but there was no trace of them. She also concludes that the exhibition match is a draw, and after that the girls of the 6th Squadron retreat. Shortly after, what occurs is that Yuki is taken aback when he sees Himari and Kyuka starting to undress right in front of him. It turns out that both of them are going to give him his reward. They proceed to join him in the bath to cleanse his body. While they are doing this, Kyuka inquires if he is feeling more fatigued than usual. He responds affirmatively, explaining that having to serve 2 mistresses simultaneously is very exhausting for him. Therefore, he advises that the advantage of power Yusen should not be used lightly. Kyuka comments that they have learned to use slave in a practical way, so they need to continue exploring its possibilities in the future. Later, Nei hands them a sketch of the enemy commanders he saw earlier, noting that none of them are the humanoids from last time. Back at home, Yuki is left thinking about her, wondering why she wasn't with the enemies from before, being possible that they are from a different squad. When he already falls asleep, we see Tenka appear before him by using his Usand ability. The next day, they visit the 6th Squadron. Kyoka tells Himari and Yuki that they will have a meeting with Tenka, asking Himari to get acquainted with those in the 6th Squadron, while Yuki will take over as the temporary caretaker of the base. For a moment we are shown Shushu Tsuruga, who is about to tidy up his room, wanting to look more acceptable to Yuki. As the day goes on, it is Yuki's turn to enter Himari's sister Yachiho's room. Upon doing so, she sees that her room is filled with pictures of Himari all over the walls, merely dropping her change of clothes and running out in a hurry without knowing what the heck that was. Arriving in the living room, he sees that Zahara is asleep on the sofa in her underwear, approaching to tuck her in so that she doesn't get sick, but when he tries to do so, she suddenly grabs him and hugs him tightly, confusing him with her pillow. Trying to separate them only worsens the situation, and after a while, Yuki finally gives up. 2001, upon waking, apologizes for forgetting the 7th Squadron's visit. As they walk, they meet Himari, waiting for her sister to leave so she can talk. Yachijo stays focused in the gym, and Zahara tells Himari that her sister trains that way. Regular. Himari gradually learns that she's been trying so hard lately, and suddenly Zahara asks her if she admires Yachi today. She replies that her personality sucks, but she does well academically and athletically, so she always thought she could learn something from her. Zahara tells her that she's a fan of the theory that someone's peach skill is based on their nature and knowledge, so in Himari's case, her desire to learn from Yachijo is what became her skill. The same goes for Yachijo's ability to control time, stemming from his desire to spend time with his little sister, opining that it would be nicer if he talked to her a little more often. Yuki supports that, handing Himari a towel so that she can approach her sister and hand it to her. Yachijo just snatches it out of her hands, causing them to fight each other again, while Sahara and Yuki are happy to see them getting along. As for the commanders' meeting, Kyuka proposes to track the humanoids. Tenka considers that there are only 4 of them at the moment, not believing that the humanoid that Yusan fought against is dead. In a scene change, we see that Raiden is still alive, finding himself at their base. One of the leaders is named Shikoku, being responsible for saving him at the last second before he was sucked into Tenka's black hole. She lets him know that the battle ended when Raiden allowed her to raise his army of Shukis and goes over what they have been doing for the time being. First, to assess the enemy's capabilities, Shikoku fought the 3rd Squadron and defeated them with ease, though the commander was not with them. So the purpose of this recent encounter was to experience the strength of a commander firsthand, but they exceeded their expectations, and the other member of them, Horyu, thinks it is more sensible to. Kyoka supports Shikoku's plans instead of following Ryan's nonsense strategies. Shikoku plans to attack when the 8 are reunited. Until then, they will continue to operate in the shadows. Back to Kyoka and Tenka's meeting, Tenka out of the blue asks him if he can give her his slave Yuki. It turns out she wants him for the 6th Squadron, explaining that she has excelled in studies since she was young and her rank reflects that. But she finds her personal life a bit dull, so she expresses the need for a pet, someone who can assist her in unwinding after a long, exhausting day at work, and who can bring joy into her life. If she is open to being adaptable and entrusting her servant to him, she will be prepared to back her in the forthcoming election for Supreme Commander. Upon hearing this, Kyoka smiles, but she firmly informs him that she intends to ascend to the position of Supreme Commander through her own efforts, without exploiting her subordinates in any way. Tenka agrees, but questions him about allowing her to date his slave during her free time. Once back at the base, Kyoka informs her that Tenka desires Yuki and is set on finding a partner there. She mentions that the 7th Squadron requires him, yet, as she told Tenka, she can't control his personal life. Yuki gets the point, though he believes her issue is having very little free time. When he is lying in his bed, suddenly, out of nowhere, Tenka appears right there in his room. As she moves closer to him, she tells him that she wants him to be her boyfriend, explaining that it was his bravery that won her over and made her fall in love with him. As she presses her body against his, she softly whispers in his ear that if she becomes big and strong, she could take care of him, which makes him quite nervous. Following that, she kisses him gently on the lips, and as they slowly pull apart, Tenka mentions that it makes his heart race with excitement. The situation progresses quickly due to the fact that Yusan can't take it anymore, going so far as to take her shirt off with his power. There he asks her if he can at least tell her if he will agree to go out with her, placing as options 1, I accept your proposal, 2, I need time to think about it, or 3, I reject it. Yuki quickly shouts out option number 2, making her think it's not a rejection of his proposal. This incentivizes her to do something to make him accept her, fiddling with him some more, but within seconds the door opens as it's Zuruga, becoming alarmed to see them in bed like that. After that, they all gather around, Kyoka asking Tenka when she became so aggressive. Teruga interrupts to mention that sneaking into another squad's dorm room in the middle of the night is totally disrespectful. Kyoka, agreeing with that, without further ado, orders the others to leave, while Atenka asks her to go home. The next day, they all gather outside, where Kyoka tells them that she would like to try to lend her sleep ability. This would allow the 2 of them to ride Yuki in his slave form, and if she had to guess his attributes, they probably change depending on who is riding him. Himari confirms that this is true, as he didn't look the same when she rode him, and depending on those, If the Yukis were to utilize their unique attributes, it would significantly expand the array of strategic tools and techniques available to them. The first to attempt this is Nei, who, by taking Yuki's chains, causes her to undergo a transformation, obtaining the form known as Infinite Chain Shining Star. Although she doesn't notice any physical enhancements, what she has greatly improved is her sight and hearing. Her senses have increased, making her ideal for exploration. Yuki uses Markbreaker and channels energy into her eyes, which allows her to have X-ray vision. She stares at the girls through their clothes for a while, only to realize that what she sees is real. As they fight each other, Kyuka recognizes that such an attribute could be used to track hidden Yukis, but it comes at a high cost. Unlike Himari's learning, lending his ability drains a considerable amount of his strength. When Yuki returns to normal, Nei approaches to suddenly give her a kiss on her cheek. She immediately reacts and explains that her body started to move by itself, looking very embarrassed. With that, Kyoka realizes that the one responsible for paying the price is the borrower, not the lender. So she apologizes to Nate, as he incorrectly assumed that she would be in charge of his compensation when he lent the skill. Tsuruga takes a few seconds to process everything she heard and quickly grasps the situation, eagerly volunteering to ride Yuki. She imagines the great reward she'll get once the transformation is complete. The form Yuki assumes when she rides him is known as Infinite Chain Crusher. This form boosts her strength significantly but greatly decreases her agility. Kyoka doesn't see much use for this transformation, causing Tsuruga to get nervous, launching the idea that maybe he will increase in size with his ability. That's when he uses Paradigm Shift, but this only makes his huge body crush Yuki, as he didn't grow at all along with her. The reward he gives her is to bandage her injured arm, feeling quite disappointed. Once that's done, Kyoka informs them that they're going to prioritize their attributes, with Nei as their 2000 rider. Then, Himari warns Nei that it is time for her to leave for school. But before leaving, Yuki asks Kyoka for permission to accompany her on her way. She grants him that, wanting him to get to know her superior more. As they are walking, Yuki asks Nei why she joined the Anti-Demon Defense Force, as it must be hard to go to school and work for this organization, to which she replies that not having school every day helps her with that. Besides, the Anti-Demon Defense Force is a worthy cause, as she might end up finding her parents. One day, out of nowhere, her parents disappeared, and everything pointed to a killing incident. With that, Yuki learns that she also lost her family. Then Nei tells her that when she ate a peach and got her clairvoyant powers, she believes that her feelings manifested in her ability, hence the name of that ability. Promise I'll surely meet you there. Yuki supports the idea that her parents are still alive, just as she believes her older sister is still out there somewhere. Later, Tenka meets with Kyuka to deliver a message from the Supreme Commander. In said message, she says that even if they locate the humanoid Shukis, they are not to engage them until she gives the order. Apparently, her goal is to create a dialogue with the humanoids. Tenka, believing that the Supreme Commander wants to evaluate how intelligent they are, Kyoka doesn't think that will work. Since they are among those who initiate attacks first, Tenka assures him that his squad will fully support theirs. Later on, they head to the kitchen, where Tenka seizes the moment to be very affectionate with Yuki. However, within a few minutes, the attack alarm sounds, prompting Tenka to assist them by transporting them to the scene right away. Before engaging in the fight, Kyoka speaks to Yukiya regarding her previous statement about not interfering in her personal life, even retracting those words and giving her order not to be dazzled by the commander of another squadron, since at the end of the day, he is still her slave. Yuki accepts that order happily, confronting the Yukis in order to face an abnormal one, even though he has regeneration. The two show great superiority and eliminate him with ease. This battle is seen by Shikoku, who notices that the enhanced Yukis are not as good as he thought, thinking about what to do next. Once the battle is over, Tenka teleports to a place to be alone. There she mentions that Yuki is really a slave at heart, but that only makes her like him more, and that she doesn't think her personal life is going to be so boring from now on. On another day of combat, Kyoka sets out to give Yuki the reward again, where this time it's all about carrying her. She considers doing this kind of thing to be a waste of time, but he disagrees with that, worrying about his welfare. This causes Kyoka to blush and then kisses her on the lips. Later, they have a meeting, including Tenka. There, Yuki tells them more about his sister, showing flashbacks of the past where she defended him from bullies, but he also showed bravery to not be completely protected by her. After that, Tenka leaves and Yuki goes to take a bath, but after a few seconds, Nei informs them about a civilian who is in Mato and is being chased by the Yukis. The girls quickly go to the indicated place, although upon arrival, Himari is ambushed by the civilian with a powerful punch, being another of the humanoids. Despite that attack, Himari stands her ground because she was able to block it at the last moment with a shield she created with her ability. But before starting to fight, Himari tells Coco that they are willing to negotiate with their kind, but Coco refuses, being determined to crush them. Meanwhile, Kyoko suddenly visits Yuki in the bathroom, wanting her to transform so she can go support Himari and Tsuruga in battle. Himari sees that Coco's special Shuki is bulletproof, but in the face of this, she decides to use a more powerful weapon, although that destructive shot is dodged by Coco at the last moment, as well as her Shuki. On the other hand, Tsuruga is surprised by another special one, which is accompanied by Neon 1, the other humanoid. Kyoka and Yuki arrive at the place, being greeted by Aoba. She suddenly yells at Yuki to stop, and due to the surprise of that, he listens to her. This causes Kyoka to break away from him, which takes advantage of Oba to capture him with her hair. Once that is done, he uses other Yukis to distract Kyoka, allowing the three of them to escape along with the special Yukis, because their target was Yuki. Kyoka remains calm in this situation, deciding to take a rest while Uruga heals his wounds. When Yuki wakes up, the first thing he sees is Coco, who starts licking him all over his naked body. While he ignores the situation, he recognizes that scream that the humanoid said to him, realizing that she is definitely his sister Aoba Wakura. A few seconds later, she arrives, punishing Goku for doing weird things to him, although he later realizes that she was only healing him with her saliva because it has medicinal properties. After that, she walks over to give her dear brother a hug, and he is quite delighted to be reunited with her. Finally, Niobe mentions to him that they will go for a walk afterwards, as she wants to discuss with him where they are and what's happening. Once outside, they explain to her that they call this place a hidden village. There are no peach trees nearby, so the anti-demon defense force doesn't come snooping around here, allowing them to see that there are none. Other humanoids besides the three of them. About 20 people call this place home, and they are all former humans like her. After that, she formally meets Coco Zenobako and Neon Juno. Aoba clarifies to her that Shukis are pure-blooded monsters, and they are a special case. Yuki clarifies that there is no need for them to be hidden, giving them the idea that they should talk to the anti-demon defense force to get help, but saying that only makes the three of them make a very bad face, not trusting at all in that organization. Meanwhile, Kyoko warns the girls that his body has started moving on its own, which means that Yuki has deactivated his transformation and now his body is heading towards him to collect the 2000 reward. This will allow them to locate him and hit the humanoid base, all preparing to leave. Before leaving in search of Yuki, Tenka appears with them with his squad, all initiating the rescue mission. Returning to Yuki and her sister Oba, she explains that the peaches are the reason for their current state, and now offers to reveal the truth to her. At that time, she was working in the human world, but one day she got caught up in a Mata mishap. She hadn't eaten a peach then, thinking she would rejuvenate by eating one after she aged, as she longed for beauty. However, she couldn't even entertain that thought, being compelled to eat a peach to avoid being consumed by the Shukis. In doing so, the peach's power went out of control, and the next thing she knew, she had been taken to a dark room. She was in the Yin-Yang dormitory, a research facility to study the Yusand. At that moment, she began to suffer the changes in her body. The old woman who was watching her told her that this kind of accident does not happen in their world. Their main theory is that it was caused by Mato's miasma, but they need to investigate further. For that very reason, he requests her to agree to collaborate with them in the investigation, so they might find a cure for her condition. After that, they conducted a thorough examination of her entire body and used her as a guinea pig. Soon after, she awakened the ability to pass through objects, which allowed her to find an opportunity to escape with her friends. Their situations are similar, with the exception of Oba, who had to spend years hiding in Matto, resisting the transformation to maintain her human side, and when he eventually came to his senses and met them, which is the reason they were cautious in rescuing him. Yuki suggests telling the girls everything, but Aoba considers it pointless. It turns out that the Yin-Yang Dormitory is an organization that believes Matto is beneficial to the nation, and thus they have the power to nullify any attempt. One proof of this is that he was unaware of it until they met. Then their plan is to storm the Yin-Yang Dormitory and rescue the others who are trapped in the same situation, introducing the special shuki they have at their disposal, which includes the Unijon. When Kyoka and the others finally arrive at the entrance to the secret village, they are checked by Coco. Her special shuki, Sahara, gets in the way to keep her away from the others, and she and Tsuruga work together to fight her off, while the others continue to move on. While on their way, Neon's special Yuki encounters Himari and Chiho, who stay to care for him. They notice Neon hiding in the walls, which lets Tenka use a portal to advance with Kyuka. Meanwhile, Aoba tells Yuki to remain in the room, as her friends are likely battling Coco and the others. That's when she realizes she's not being taken by Tenka unseen, leaving with Kyoka. Aoba realizes that it is teleportation and is now conscious of that ability. Being in a secure place, Kyoka immediately starts to give Yuki her reward by sucking her finger. At that instant, Tenka takes Yuki's other hand to do the same, wanting to reward her for the hard work she has done by having both commanders like that. In a matter of seconds, Aoba appears in front of them, but just before she attacks, Yuki steps in to prevent her. She yells at him not to get in the way, but he responds in kind by asking her to listen to him. This makes Aoba calm down, as she has always been weak to her little brother's desperate pleas. Yuki takes advantage of that to explain to Kyoka and Tenka everything that has happened to her sister. Now we are with the battle of Coco and the girls, who activate their ability to initiate the brute force fight. For a moment, Ryu is seen flying in the air, observing the battle after they are found. Yuki reveals the truth, and Kyuka states that if it's true, she will destroy the Yin-Yang dorm, asking Oba for trust. Aoba responds that they will act as they wish and defeat anyone in their way, noting her disagreement with what was done to him. Yuki clarifies to him that this is something he decided on his own, as he became her slave to be a hero. Because the dialogue doesn't work, Aoba grabs his brother to tie him up and take him away from them. After that, he calls Unicorn to join his side, but before fighting, Tenka introduces herself as the commander of the 6th Squadron, informing him that she is currently dating Yuki, even calling Oba her sister-in-law. This only makes her quite furious, declaring that she is going to destroy it. In Coco and the girls' fight, she shows great strength and agility by having a fist fight with Sahara. Despite this, Sahara realizes that she lacks skill, seeing an opening to take a direct hit to her face, but when she tries to do so, her fist slips due to the liquid covering Coco's entire body. That mistake results in Coco's Chucky being on the verge of devouring her, but Tsuruga intervenes just in time, catching it in mid-air to prevent it. Following this, he attempts to crush it with his hands, only to discover that it is incredibly tough. At that moment, Coco warns them both that they are facing their most formidable opponents, as the two have the upper hand against them. Meanwhile, in the battle between Himari and Achihiha, Achihiha employs her Golden Hour ability to halt time, which enables her to target and shoot at the vital points of the enhanced Shuki. At the last second, this enemy launches an attack towards her, parrying before hurting her by dying right then and there. Despite missing, her clothes are reasoned by the edge of his weapon. Yachijo turns to look at his sister, only to see that she was seriously wounded by a surprise attack from a Shuki from behind. In a scene change, Ryu informs Shikoku that he has found the base of the humanoids, who are in a fight with the anti-demon defense force. Shikoku decides it's time for his god's declaration, and they head that way. In the commander's fight, Aoba deals with Tenka's teleportation, while Kyoka faces the Unicorn, staying calm due to her training. Shinjuki has less firepower but isn't hindered, telling the Unicorn that for every person, the enemy that he has killed will cut him to ribbons. After fighting Tenka for a while, Aoba realizes that his teleportation is not the only ace up his sleeve. The next thing he does is use his superhuman speed to make Tenka unable to pinpoint his position. Despite that, his attacks still fail to reach her, and so Aoba starts eating a peach, which gives her a huge power boost. There he tells her that he will defeat her, especially if she is a homewrecker who takes advantage of her younger brother. Her next attack is an area attack that Tenka dodges. But when she comes out of the portal, she realizes at that instant that Aoba is about to attack her, escaping each time without being able to do anything. This is because the peaches also sharpen her sense, allowing her to reach the portal before she can do anything. With that in mind, rest assured that this will be a battle of attrition. But unfortunately for Oba, as a commander he can teleport 666 times in a row. Back to Sahara and Saruga's fight, the next thing they do against Coco is to smash a rock on her, but she tells them that it is useless because thanks to the peaches, her physical resistance and regenerative abilities improved. Seeing that, Saruga proposes to do the S formation, which consists of running away at full speed. This makes Coco and her monster chase them, but suddenly, Sahara grabs Saruga when she becomes tiny, throwing her hard towards them. She gets right into the mouth of the special Shuki 1. Once inside its body, she uses Paradigm Shift to become giant, causing the pressure to rip the monster to shreds. Due to this perfect distraction, Sahara attacks Coco by surprise, hiding one of the beast's fangs to do a lot of damage, and with that, the two have their victory in this battle. After that, they are distracted by a large group of Shukis in front of them, Sahara feeling weak as her time limit runs out. Ability. On the other hand, Coco begins to produce more of that liquid to go healing his wounds, while his Shuki slowly begins to unify. As for Himari and Yachijo's fight, Yachijo uses Golden Hour to go back 5S in the past. By doing that, she warns Himari about the Shukis behind, saving her life thanks to that. Despite saving her, Yachijo is forced to use her power multiple times, as they concentrate their attacks on Himari. She informs Yachijo that she can tell by the look on his face that he has been looking out for her all along, but now it's finally her chance to protect him. When Nao hides, they both team up to support each other, so Himari seizes the moment to reveal to her sister that she possesses a secret weapon. It's the very first occasion she's using it in battle, but if it functions as planned, it will force her out of hiding. That's when she lets her hair down, which transforms into a multitude of guns on her head, with the intention of shooting in every direction simultaneously, forcing her to leave. Finally, he unleashes his special attack, Full Bores, creating a bullet storm that hits the walls everywhere. They still see them escaping from the place where they, Soes Eos, causing a collapse simultaneously. But before things worsen, Yachijo uses his primetime ability, rewinding time by 10 seconds. Then, he stops Himari from undoing her hair, telling her exactly where Neon is. Himari shoots at that exact spot and brings her out, defeating her at the same time as her special Shuki. Being in the fight of the commanders, Tenka lures Oba to the Unijo so she loses vision, Kyoka taking advantage of being in her blind spot to give her a surprise attack. Thanks to that, she breaks Ioba's rhythm, Tenka already learning her moves, allowing her to attack her without missing, but before giving her the final blow, she remembers how special she is for Yuki. This prevents her from finishing her off, and Ioba takes advantage of it. Tenka uses that to shoot her energy beam at her. Tenka receives that attack head-on, suffering enormous damage from it. Being on the ground, Ioba asks him why he didn't finish her off, to which Tenka replies that if he had, Yuki would have been angry and that he's been having all sorts of new feelings lately. Aba tells him that she's resilient, so he probably doesn't need to worry about her. But it was nice of him to take Yuki's feelings into account, and so he already pleases him to hear. That makes Tenka start fantasizing about his bright future with his sister-in-law and Yuki. Aoba tells Kyoka that if they look the other way, she will let them go, but they will not change their mind about storming the office, although Kyoka refuses to back down. Just then, Coco arrives to warn her that she suffered a beating, Neon coming out of Shuki's body to tell her the same thing. There, the girls reunite and form two sides, but before they fight, a tremor occurs. Upstairs, a hole opens up where Shikobu and Horyu exit, creating a commotion as they crash to the ground. Amidst the dust that rises, Horyu easily grabs Coco and Neon. Shikoku sees that the two have great vitality, so maybe they should take them with them just in case. The girls thought they were their allies, to which Shikoku clarifies that they don't like to be compared to those inferior half-breeds, introducing themselves as the 8 Thunder Gods, the leaders of the Shuki, who they aim to exterminate the human race. He then signals to Jorio, who stomps on the ground with enormous force, creating a shockwave that sends them all flying away. Aoba resists the impact, being furious that her sisters are being held hostage, but before she gets close, she is attacked by an Igorn, to which Shikoku comments that he has restored her killing silk after biting it with one of his snakes, before it attacks Ova again. Out of nowhere, Yuki comes out transformed to block, not allowing his sister to be touched. Kyoka stays with him, determined to make them bow to them, initiating a frontal combat. For a moment we see Kyoka's past, where in her childhood she was happy in her hometown, having back then a friend with whom she got along well, but that's when the unicorn attacked, destroying everything and killing her friend in front of her eyes. With that memory in her mind, she maintains a calm demeanor during the intense battle against the Shook and the Unihon Horn. Meanwhile, Horyu informs Shikoku that their mission is already accomplished, suggesting that they should depart. Shikoku asks him to proceed without him, expressing a desire to stay a bit longer to watch Yuki, who has piqued his interest due to his impressive strength. Shikoku refers to Yuki. Yuki remains concentrated, channeling energy into his fists, which grants him immense power, surpassing even that of the unicorn. It turns out that Yuki managed to enhance those skills during his training sessions, having a strong motivation not to fail. After severely injuring his opponent, the unicorn unexpectedly starts a more monstrous transformation, charging with a force that Yuki cannot stop. What Yuki does is use his own body to stop it, and he manages to catch its horn with his jaw, injuring himself in the process of doing something so risky. Shikoku is fascinated by her courage, while Yuki channels the energy into her mouth, thus being able to destroy the tip of that horn. Kyoka takes advantage of this to finish destroying it with his sword, preparing to launch his special attack Sere Flower, his howling, keeping in mind the people of his city while he performs that final blow, cutting in two the unicorn to exterminate it once and for all. Immediately following that, Shikoku vanishes into the shadows, while Kyoka lifts her sword triumphantly, dedicating this victory to her city, Natal. For a brief moment, we notice Shikoku becomes quite interested in Yuki, finding it entertaining. Tenka then uses his power to transport the injured girls for treatment, with Aoba comforting Yuki by telling her that her wounds will heal swiftly. Shortly after, Tenka comes back to deal with an injury, explaining that this is a family issue and he needs to be present, along with Nei. She is taking care of the others. Kyuka wants to know what she will do to Oba from now on, to which she replies that she cannot lead a revolt under these conditions. She has lost all the Shuki, and they have kidnapped Koko and Neon, but she still has to save them. Kyoka asks her if she is willing to let him protect her, intending to do everything she can to save her friends. Despite his offer, Aoba prefers to go on her own, still not trusting the anti-demon defense force, Tenka thinks that Aoki's decision to leave Tenka and Yuki is not a good one. Tenka thinks Aoba's decision is wise, all because of Supreme Commander Yamashiro. If the Onmu office really is conducting these experiments, there's a good chance she's aware of it. It's good to have a Supreme Commander who is so patriotic, but it's a bit disconcerting. She didn't dare to attack Oba during the fight, but she knows very well that Yamashiro wouldn't hesitate even 1 for that's just how she is. Fortunately, only they know about this, so they can investigate the Onview office themselves. Yuki wonders how long her sister and friends will have to stay hidden, and Kyoka says it's simple. Later they return to the dorm, and Nei happily greets Yuki, relieved she's okay. Tenka is about to leave for treatment, but first, she tells Yuki that next time they're alone, she expects a nice reward. Generous of her. Kyoka orders Yuki to wait in his slave form while she takes a bath, him staying to chat with Nei. She sees that Yuki is affected by what happened to the others, making it clear to him that if something happens, it is his duty to work very hard on behalf of everyone in the hospital, so he should eat something and try to cheer up, being orders from his senpai. Hearing those motivating words make Yuki feel better, and after that, she goes to serve him their food. Later, he turns off Yuki's transformation, telling her to bathe and go to her room for her reward. This time, the reward is sleeping together, and she complains about not having clothes since he doesn't want to sleep. She begins stretching her body roughly, as punishment for disobeying him and following his sister, leading to her capture. Soon after, he falls asleep and she also ends up sleeping next to him. In a change of scene, we are with the Thunder Gods. They use Coco and Naom as food for another one of their number, who is about to be born and join them. The next day, Yuki holds a banquet in celebration of the girls' recovery, giving a short speech thanking them all for saving them. All the girls have a joyful time, though in the midst of that, Himari and the others approach Yuki, welcoming him home for being back, causing him to become very sentimental and happy about it. On that night, he looks at a horse accessory in her hand, remembering the conversation they had in the cave. At that time, Kyoka had said that Aoba would stop hiding with an easy solution, and it is her becoming the Supreme Commander, declaring that she will change everything. The system when he gets it, thus being able to protect her and the others, as well as getting a way to heal them. Aoba feels a bit calmer hearing that, though this conversation is interrupted when the place starts to collapse. So, Aba approaches Yuki to hand her that prop, asking her to fix that for her. Before leaving, he assures her that she will be fine. Instead, Yuki resolutely tells her that he will find a way to help her. Those words reach Aba, realizing she has become very strong, earning an A+ for that. Fast forward to today, Yuki reflects that he has been fighting because he wanted to be a hero. But now it's more than that. His goal is to cure his older sister, which is his reason to fight. The next morning, he wakes up with Tenka on top of him, who seizes the chance to claim his reward. Before anything happens, Kyoka enters the room after noticing he hasn't gotten up yet. Barely. She looks at Tenka, only complains about it, causing her to retreat. Yuki, on the other hand, is given a corresponding punishment, being able to tell that he needs more discipline. Later he meets with Himari, she wanting to hone her skill, aiming to become stronger and thus be of use to the commander. Hearing that is enough for Yuki to agree to help her, starting the training. Teruga stands watching from afar, telling herself that she must be patient now, not being the time to act. Remembering what she discovered online in her hospital stay, the art of war also applies to romance. Instead of competing for attention, she needs to act aloof, as according to her analysis, Yuki's love levels are clear. At that moment, Nei informs everyone that a gateway has just opened, causing many Yukis to gather at one point. Everyone prepares to head to their designated location. Yuki is more than ready to fight alongside Kyoka, and they quickly eliminate the largest monster with a swift attack. This is the story of how Yuki will become a hero, and Kyoka will rise to become the Supreme Commander.